Hey, yo, welcome to the Godcast.
The Lord told me to tell you, wake up, wake up, wake up.
You want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth.
Was there an awakening moment?
So this is like an all-encompassing awakening.
It's all-encompassing.
Every day, as they would creep in, I would just have to stop and catch myself right in those moments and say, God, I trust you. I'm not going to be afraid. I'm giving you my fear.
And I also came to the understanding what you're saying was you can't have light without dark. But then I started having the thought of, well, if we didn't have nighttime and we didn't have the winter, then plants would never stop growing. So if we never had issues, then we would only grow more. The thing with me, I never got into the astrology stuff. I never got into really doing any kind of energy work until I was very firm with Jesus. And it's a thing with me and Jesus where like people are praying and I'll get the sudden urge to tell that person to give your burdens to Jesus, and they'll say like, oh, I was just trying to talk to Jesus.
Welcome to Godcast,
the Goodness Over Darkness podcast.
Here's your host, Emmanuel Kingman.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome to Godcast, the Goodness Over Darkness podcast. I'm your host, Emmanuel Kingman, and with me is the beautiful, lit up in her glory, Mimi.
Hello.
Hello, my love. I was just making jokes because the lighting, you don't like that. We have to have all the bright lighting.
In my glasses.
Yeah, but
the joy of being blind.
Yeah, but it's what we need to do to look good. So
I look fine.
Yeah, you always look fine. So on today's episode, we had on special guest Chuck from Fire Theft Radio. And this episode was really fun. It was really entertaining. It was really informative. What did you think about our guest Chuck?
Stop it.
I do this
Don't
every
come
time.
To me first. Stop it.
This is how I do with interest with you, my love.
It puts me on the spot. And I didn't write a lot of notes. I was really listening this time, so I didn't write down too much except for some book recommendations and some other little things that came to me.
Well, so. Chuck was very interesting. He had a lot of interesting experiences. He had...
Yeah, that was crazy.
Yeah, from the beginning.
His poor mom, yes.
Yes, and his sisters. We didn't even talk about that as well. But, I mean, he had some very spiritual attachments to himself and his family. And then through the miracle...
That's a very interesting story about his mom. That was like, whoa.
Through the miracle of Jesus Christ, prayer reversed the damages that were done to his mother, her brain hemorrhaging, also his father with the psoriasis. Just some incredible stuff that just prayer was able, going to a church and praying with people was able to release them. And ultimately, it probably comes down to their belief and their faith and trust that could even happen is really what did it. Yeah, so
it kind of makes, every time we talk about when people pray, or when they've prayed like their hardest, I guess you would say, makes me think of the time that I did that.
Oh, do you want to?
So that might be a different episode.
Oh, I'm not even familiar with this. So yeah, I don't even know about this. So yeah, that's very interesting.
You can see it in my face. Not ready.
Well, one day you will be. So yeah, we went from there with these this crazy spiritual stuff to the miracles, and then we talked about demons. We really delved into what demons are possibly, and the Nephilim, the Raphaim. We talked about baptism, and he answered a question that we asked last night on. We were both guests on Nomad podcast, which actually I'm going to be uploading on my YouTube channel and also on my RSS feed. We'll be uploading on there. So I asked the question, why did John the Baptist baptize with water, and why did people even come to him? It's a thing. It's one thing to, okay, he was doing it, But
But
why would
why?
people?
What was the reason? And
Yeah.
why did people feel the need to go and be baptized?
Yeah, and as synchronicities work, as God works,
Yeah.
he answered my question from last night in my interview today. And Chuck gave us an answer, and you'll have to listen to the episode to find out what Chuck is talking, or what the answer that Chuck believes is. I'm not going to give it away here. Yeah, so then we just ended by talking about what do you think is to come, and how do you put on your spiritual armor in this crazy world.
Yeah, I definitely think that if you are listening to this episode before the Nomad episode, I would suggest that you stop and watch the Nomad one first, because there are a lot of different connections, not just the John the Baptist one, but when he was talking about the name of his podcast, Fire Theft Radio, and Prometheus, got me thinking about what we talked about on Nomads with the Statue of Liberty and the World's Fairs and the Olympics, where they're passing the flame.
Torch.
So I want to look into that some more, but yeah, there was a lot of different
Ooh, that is a
similarities. I know, I wrote
the
it down,
Olympics, the
and I didn't
passing
want
of
to
the
talk
torch.
about it, but
The Prometheus, it's
yeah.
it's the reenactment of
stealing
Cain,
the fire and
Cain, stealing the fire and bringing it to the abominations.
And where are the Olympics this year?
Are they in China?
They are. And why are we flying people to China? Where, the mess started? Why are we doing that?
Well,
why is that allowed? You can't go anywhere else, but you can go there.
When the Rona was released in the world, it was actually during the military games that were happening in 2019. It was right at the same time. So
very interesting. I want to look more into this Prometheus and Cain and this fire thing, Statue of Liberty, all of it. I want to look into all of it some more. It's intriguing me.
Yeah, and we have that everlasting thing in our consciousness that the caveman having fire, while the caveman is the creation that was here, that's not of God's creating, but of the if you want to say the Anunnaki, or these fallen angels that created a creation to be slaves for them, and then somebody brought them fire. I mean, that's what we're talking about here, is that Cain is the one that brought them fire, these cavemen, these Neanderthals, if you will. I mean, that's just how
interesting.
Yeah,
it's intriguing me, that's for sure.
And
then when we were talking about the blue light stuff, it got me
oh yeah, that was good,
thinking about the red light stuff, because there's someone in the area that does the far infrared therapy, which is essentially a red light therapy. So what's going on there between the blue, the blue light,
the blue light hurts
light
us, and the red light, and there you go with the blue bloods. The serpent seed is the blue bloods, versus the iron is the red bloods, which is us. So
but
is that a connection?
I don't know, but our blood is blue until it hits oxygen,
right? But their blood was blue to the point that they were blue looking. Krishna, Osiris, they're depicted as being blue. Shiva, they're because they were copper blooded beings, where we are iron blooded beings. So
that would make sense. Okay.
So the red light helps us, and the blue light hurts us. That makes sense to me. In that
makes sense to me. Okay.
And Project Bluebeam. There you go. 5G. Are they connected? We talked about that at the end. Well, not about that specifically, but about 5G being released on the reverse date of 9/11.
Yeah.
1/19.
Interesting stuff.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
About which part specifically?
About the 5G stuff.
I think that, and this is just mere speculation, but I think that maybe people might start dropping like flies at some point, like they did in China.
They're already dropping like flies.
No, but like they were in China when the Rona first came into the awareness, and people were falling down, convulsing, and dying. I think that may happen to some degree here. I think it is happening in the
Yeah.
sports aspect where you have all these soccer players, but that's also something different. This is just people that were walking down the street near these towers and just all of a sudden convulsing and dying and foaming out the mouth and all sorts of craziness. Uh, I hope that's not the case. I hope I'm wrong, but I feel that it may be the case.
Well, I don't know. I feel like it depends on what is in your vessel when you're near these things. You know?
Right? Yeah. Of course. Yeah. I'm not saying everybody it's going to
Right, right,
happen
right,
to.
right.
And what we talked about the James Bond thing, that it's only in that movie that he was talking about, only certain people were affected by this thing. So could be that as well. That only certain people that are, I don't know, maybe they have a certain type of blood type of maybe a certain amount of like I was just saying, the iron blood versus the copper blood, or sometimes I say the serpent seed versus
Yeah, maybe.
the iron or
Are
versus
their
God
vessels
seed,
more cleaned out?
or they're more
Be-
susceptible to it,
mhm.
like for whatever reason. And is that in conjunction with Project
The
Bluebeam
mini
and
tech and
5G?
things like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I guess we're soon to find out.
Whew.
Yeah.
I don't
Who?
really want to
Yeah.
find
But
out, but we're going to, I think.
yeah, the spiritual warfare, it's gonna go from being in the spiritual realm to the physical realm. I mean, that's just the natural process of things when we bring forth things that we've created. So even if we're not purposely creating it, the way the world's set up, it's all divisionist, and people are fighting about this and that all over the place. So it is going to make the spiritual warfare go from the soul space to the physical space, the earth dimension. And how that plays out, is it aliens as we know for the most part? Is it that going to be what happens? Is it going to be just a human war? Is it going to be a supernatural thing where we're seeing light beings fighting other dark beings, the opposite of light, whatever, a shadow man or whatever. I don't know what it's going to look like. I think that it's going to be weird. I don't think it's going to be just your run of the mill war, even though war is terrible, of course. I don't want war ever. So I don't know how it's going to play out, honestly, but I just have a feeling that because everything happens that way. You have the four different realms. You have the physical realm, you have the emotional realm, you have the mental realm, and you have the spiritual realm. They're the four main ones. And things happen spiritually first and work their way down to the physical level, but also things can happen physically first and then they work their way up. So this would be working its way down from the spiritual to the mental to the emotional, uh, then to the physical plane. So
Yeah, because when you get sick, when you get that physical, and then you get
well, we've been in the
scared,
mental
so
war.
the mental.
The mental and the emotional are kind of go hand in
Yeah.
hand with each other. That it has been that at least for 2020, if not since 2016, honestly, because
Yeah.
that's really when things.
Can't let that fear creep in. You
Yeah.
cannot let it creep in. If you are
Get into that mic a little bit more.
say it again. If you are if you are afraid of catching something, let me just put it that way. You're probably going to have a worse experience than if you're not afraid.
Yeah, but then we have, okay, God's going to test you no matter what. So if you're not afraid, you're going to catch it. Is that going to make you give in to the fear, or will that strengthen your resolve? Will you trust in God that I
Right.
will be okay? There are certain steps I have to take. There's certain things I'll have to put in my body to fight off these
Mhm.
infections, whether it's killing parasites or whether it's adding in vitamin C, vitamin D, zinc.
Stay mentally strong.
Yeah, you have to be mentally and emotionally and spiritually
Yes.
strong in
Yes.
order to take care of the physical body. And for some people, I think it just may be the end of the line for them. They may not go on from here in the physical sense, but that's not here nor there because we live eternally. So they're just not meant to move on, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's not a good thing. I don't want anyone to suffer or be afraid or sad that they lost a loved one. And it's a hard place to be in to understand everything that's going on. But we just have to trust that everything is working out for everybody's benefit. So maybe they would suffer more if they were to stay alive longer. That's always the catch that we don't realize, that when we have a loved one pass on, that we could possibly they could have possibly suffered worse if they were
Right.
to live on. So take that for what it is. Maybe it's a silver lining for somebody out there. I don't know. And I'm not suggesting death is good or that it's not a big deal, because it is to us. How would we feel emotionally and mentally and spiritually if we were to, and physically, if we were to lose the love of our life, or our children or parents or friends or whoever? It can be very devastating to anybody out there. So I don't want to give the wrong impression here that
No,
we're suggesting. So I think that'll do it. Do you have anything else?
I don't.
Okay, that'll do it for the intro. Make sure you go send our love to Chuck and Omar from Fire Theft Radio. Go say hello and that you heard them over here. Make sure you check out my YouTube channel, Goodness Over Darkness. Go subscribe. You can share this podcast wherever you're listening to. Like it, comment wherever you can, rate and review. Hit the follow button if you're on Podbean. You can follow my podcast. Hit the subscribe button on YouTube or wherever. I think that most podcast players offer some kind of follow or subscribe button, and go ahead and hit that so you don't miss any episodes. I do put out quite a lot, so you don't want to miss any of them, because they're all so good and they're all contributing to
Yeah, I think supporting all of these independent researchers, essentially. I mean, you're just independently wanting to know more. I think
Right.
supporting people like that is needed.
Yeah, move away from the mainstream
Yes.
system. And hit me up my website, emmanuelkingman.com. It's an IMMANUEL Kingman.com. You hit me up for some energy work. I give the free consultations, and I do want everyone to know, don't purchase anything right away. I've had people about to do it and then email me and say, well, I'm not really sure what's what. Yes, and I don't want you to purchase anything until we speak. There's a reason for that. I want to see the person and interact with them and see if that they
Even have
actually
to purchase anything.
need
Right.
any of that. But I also, for my own protection, I need to know who I'm working with. I need to get a feel for that person to see if I'm the right person for them to work with. I can't just take on just anybody's energy. So don't financially commit to something. I want to talk to you first and get a feel for you. And I've had two people at least that I talked to and said, oh yeah, you guys don't need my work, but I'll give you tips. And I give them tips and information, and then we email back and forth still. And I do that for free. I don't need money to do it. Money is just to energetically seal things on your end, because when you let me in, when you open yourself up to me, I need you to seal that off. So financial things is an energetic means in this realm. So that's really what it's about, is you are not only are you committing to it, and it means something more for you, but it's also you're energetically closing me out when the transaction is finished. And that's for my benefit as well as for your own. So that's what that's all about. So make sure you guys go do all that stuff. And without further ado, here is Chuck.
Welcome to the Godcast. cross up on my back, I'm slaying demons. It don't matter what you call that. Searching for the truth, facts are facts until they fall flat. It's looking like a story, man, it's all cap. But it's goodness over darkness, it ain't all bad. I'm at my maker, but I was called back. Emmanuel, show my people they're under a spell. Heaven or hell is free will. I made my choice and now it's well with my soul. I pray the same for you as well. Welcome to the Godcast. Welcome to the Godcast.
Hello, everybody. On today's episode, I have on a guest with a very interesting past. He has been around the block spiritually and knows the demonic realm very well. He is one half of Fire Theft Radio. Everybody welcome Chuck to the show.
Hey, what's going on, guys? Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thanks for being on, Chuck. It's great to meet you. I've heard you on your podcast as well as guest appearances, and you have a great wealth of knowledge into this demonic world and through biblical scripture, and you have very many experiences before you got there. So you're very, very interesting to me because you aren't someone who was just indoctrinated into something.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Well, you know, the funny part is that's kind of what I was at first. I was indoctrinated, and being in that kind of world of being in what I know now is a more of a cult, like a Christian cult.
Oh, wow.
That was what really set me off into this kind of like knowledge seeking, because, you know, being in this kind of like very legalistic, very rigid kind of cult like system, naturally my character, I was like, well, I want to kind of reject it. And then, I mean, I was pretty close to becoming an atheist, which is what led to other, you know, knowledge seeking things. And you know, through time, you know, it turned into Fire Theft Radio. You know, God knew what he was doing, but I was just kind of on a journey, you know what I mean?
Well, that's awesome. It's funny when we talk about being atheists as Americans, I look at that and I'm like, well, we're not really atheists. We were just rebelling against what we were brought up as, and I guess the rest of the world's probably the same way.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so yeah, so it's just funny how we tend to think like we're being atheists, but then when we evaluate it, we're like, well, we weren't really atheists. We didn't believe that there was no God. We just didn't believe what was presented to us, and we call
Right.
that atheism. I mean, I was the same way. Everyone I talked to was really the same way. They're like, I was agnostic, but not really. You know, it's
Right.
just kind of rebellion, if you will, because we
Yeah.
inherently know that something's wrong with what's presented to us.
Yeah, indeed. And I mean, growing up, I don't know what specifically you want to get into, but when I was telling my story, I think on Josh Monday's podcast, I was kind of telling him, like, you know, my mom, we just followed whatever my mom did. So she kind of had like she was always kind of a seeker as well. So we were practicing so many different things. At first, it was just, you know, your regular traditional kind of Catholic, kind of traditional Catholic, not really going to church, but we believed in it and things like that. And then she got into like, you know, practicing witchcraft and things like that. And so that's when we kind of started getting into the supernatural things and started experiencing a lot of weird supernatural things here in our home. And, you know, very young, I was exposed to just things that were kind of paranormal, kind of like your paranormal activity things in that you see in the movies, you know. It was that bad, you know, because we were practicing it a lot, and I was included in those rituals and things like that.
Oh,
And
wow.
we were doing it just because we thought it was something good, because they sold us the idea, kind of that dualistic idea of like, you know, there's good witchcraft and there's bad witchcraft, you know, and it's like there's a difference there, and so we believed it, and we're like, oh, okay, cool. And you know, little did we know we were really just opening Pandora's box to the spiritual world, you know. So it just got really weird around our house, you know.
Wow, that's very interesting. And I wanted to touch on when you said that you were brought up in a cult. What type of cult? How would you describe this? Was it a certain religious practice, or was
Yeah,
it like a community that you were living in?
no, it wasn't a community. It wasn't to the full level 10 right there. Because there's this, I forgot the name of the book. My goodness, there's this book that specifically touches on what cults are like, and it was written by an atheist, but he has some really good points as far as the psychological perspective of it, and what it was is, you know, there's a lot of things that we kind of use in our everyday lives to just associate with groups, and they're kind of cult like, and that's what cults take advantage of, right? And so they really just kind of manipulate the state of our natural being, and then they just kind of create these really subgroups, and for whatever the intentions might be. But the church I was going to, it was like they were labeled non-denominational Christian church, which is, here in the Western world, that's kind of like the most harmless kind of church. You're like, oh, that's just a seeker-friendly kind of thing, and that's what it really was labeled as. So I was like, no problems here. But the reason we ended up there is because of all this supernatural stuff that was happening in our house. We were talking about voices. We're talking about shadows following us, sleep paralysis with entities on top of us, things like that, like the weird. Things like that. I was experiencing that personally. My mother was as well. Two of my sisters tried to commit suicide. They were just like, it was like crazy. It was like really, it's a long story, but we ended up there because actually one of the witch doctor ladies said, you should go to that church because a lot of miracles happen there. You know what I mean? And a witch doctor lady sent us there. And I was like, she was like, I can't help you. You guys need Jesus, which is funny.
Wow.
From someone that practices witchcraft, right? And so I was like, cool, all right. So my mother went there, and she at that point was already kind of, the doctors had told her she had less than a year to live because of a serious injury she had to her brain. She was hemorrhaging, and she would bleed internally so much from her head that it would actually come out her ears. It was because of and that was related to an incident she had at work, where someone actually tried to kill her, and like I said, it was just our life was in a bad place, and so they kind of said, you're done. My dad had cirrhosis. You're done. You're dying in less than a year or two. And he was like really bad. And then we went there, and that first prayer that they did for her, she felt that everything that was wrong with her for years at this point immediately disappeared. Like her headaches was gone. She went and got an MRI. Her brain shifted back into place. Like everything was like healed immediately,
Wow.
And she was able to walk properly because she couldn't walk for more than 5 or 10 minutes before she would like kind of pass out because of what was going on with her brain. And so we were like, this is the place to be. We had no question, all the supernatural stuff at home it would disappear, like no more sleep paralysis, no more entities, holding us down, none of the stuff moving around the house that would move by itself, like all that weird stuff, all of that went away. So in our mind's eye, we were like, okay, this is the place to be. Like this, there's power here, and we started going there, and it was just, kind of harmless at first, but I was kind of young at that point. I was, I think at that time already, maybe I was, I was young. I was in my teens, I think. And, early teens, maybe just turning 13 or something like that. And 14, yeah, about around that time. And so what happened was, as I got older and started like reading and studying the Bible more, I started realizing that what I was reading wasn't what was coming from, the teachings, the pulpit,
Right.
And I'm like, wait a minute, but, if I don't give my 10%, for example, which is a huge misunderstanding about the tithing, but that's a whole
it is. Yeah.
But I'm gonna go to hell. Like your salvation was tentative, like you can lose it on a whim, you don't, and then it got into like the health and wealth stuff, and I get that stuff. I'm like, all right, it was just like your classic kind of taking things out of context. But then the church started mixing in new age occult stuff into Christianity, and they would just say all the way down to the deliverance stuff, which in the Catholic world that's called the exorcisms. We were mixing how to expel demons, because fast forward, I became part of the organization, and part of what we do is exorcisms,
Okay.
And so they would, for example, there was one guy who was, I don't know if you know, but like in Africa, for example, when they're about to conjure certain spirit guides, you've probably seen it in the movies where they're playing the drums and they're playing like with their hands and stuff like that. And they're playing different instruments and they're doing a prayer and a dance to conjure up a spirit to possess a body, and since someone is the host, they get possessed, and then they start doing their worship when that entity has possessed somebody, So one of the bishops, because there's a hierarchy as well, one of the bishops said, let's start doing that, but let's bless these drums in the name of Jesus, and start conjuring up the spirits that are already in people that are possessed, and try and deliver them after that, or expel that demon after the fact.
So
And
can I jump in real quick with right there?
Sure.
So that really sounds like he was wanting to bring forth the demon, but there's a huge issue with that, because you don't know what you're conjuring up, because firstly, you could be calling something in through this open portal, this open wound that this person might have. You're calling things in possibly, and also that person could be possessed with something that's huge that you can't control, and now you're giving it life, you're feeding into it. That is a very dangerous practice on the face of it.
Absolutely. And so I think I'm, by the grace of God, I think I didn't get into more physical harm than we should have, because we did that for many years. I mean, we're talking about, we did that every Friday, which is an interesting day to do that, by the way, every Friday. And we did that for years. And, most services averaged about 100 to up to 500 people, you know what I mean? Depending on which city we were in. And that was just the normal practice, for us. And so once I started seeing those new age, obviously witchcraft mixed in with Christianity kind of thing, I was like, this is not right. Like, this is not what the Bible says, like, at all, not even close. And I asked the questions to the pastors and the bishops and the helpers, the elders of the church, and they were like, "You're reading too much. You're studying the Bible way too much. That's bad for you. You shouldn't do it." Yeah.
Sound like the Pope.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, it very, very much is like that. That's what I'm saying. Like, they even had that hierarchy of like bishops and things like that. And so I was like, okay. And I kind of believed it at first. And, as I got older, I just had this itch, like, no, man, I can't just, it's like you're making this stuff up for your own gain, and there was always rumors that they were misusing the money, and I really didn't buy it. And the lower level pastors, they definitely weren't. But once I got pretty high up, but I mean, I was a volunteer, like I didn't even get paid for anything, but I got high up in their meetings only because I played music for them. I played the keyboard, the piano, and I was pretty good at the music that they liked. So I ended up being in their meetings, and they're very comfortable talking around me. And then I really started seeing like the misuse of people's funds, where some of these people were living and how they were living and how reckless they were with the money. And I was like, that's the money my mom gave, my family gave. Like, what are you doing with that? My mom's struggling to pay her rent, and you live in a nice city over here that the church pays for, and you have a paid car, you have all these things. And they always kind of brag about, oh, we don't own anything. Because as long as you're part of the organization and you work for them, they provide all the food and cars and living space, but it's all in nice areas, and they all have to dress nicely. All that money comes from the congregation, from the people, because the pastors there don't have a side job. That is their job. So that's their excuse for saying, hey, man, we're trying to just keep our life going. And, and they kind of convince the people, we sacrificed our life. We don't have a job. So,
so we need this private jet.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So you give in.
The main guy does own a private jet. Yes.
Wow.
Indeed.
Wow. So everybody gives to the organization, and the organization holds everything, and then it disperses it where the organization feels. I mean, that's a cult type of atmosphere, definitely.
Right. Yes, indeed. And then, as I started doing some more digging, I was already becoming a bit of an investigator. I'm like, well, that's kind of weird. So let me look into these things. And I found out the organization was definitely using the money to buy like homes they called conference areas, and they were like $1 million homes and things like that. And they were owned by another company that belongs to them, but it wasn't the name of the church, so they can kind of say like, well, that's a different company, it's not us, but I mean, I followed all that paper trail. But yeah, so that's the biggest reason I was like, okay, even though these huge things happen, even though God worked in my family and did a lot of great things, it also, you know, was mixed in with all this other bad stuff. And that's when I was like, I can't stay here. You know, I have to leave, you know? And so, um, you know, I left, but during that time, I really knuckled down on like, what does the Bible actually say about pretty much everything? Because my whole worldview was getting destroyed when it came to my faith, because I was like, what if none of this is true? And even experiencing all that weird demonic stuff and expelling demons, encountering people that were possessed, the miracles, I still was like, is God even real? Because I've been lied to for so long.
Right.
And so, you know, it kind of led me down a rabbit hole there.
Wow. So there's a lot of interesting stuff you said there. And I want to start with the medical miracle that happened with your mother. I mean, so I heard you tell a story before where this gentleman, he didn't really remember what was happening. He said like something kind of took over him. Is that correct?
Yeah. So she worked at a company where they make spas, and his job was to forklift the frames that are surround the spa. And then he said he didn't know why. He just felt slowly like he really hated my mother, and he admitted he didn't know why. Like there was no reason other than something made him hate her so
Was it
much that,
slowly that day or just slowly over time?
which that's not clear. I don't know. I don't remember.
Okay.
But he just said that because my mom talked to her after, and said, hey, like, what'd you do that for? And he's like, I have no idea. Like, I just got taken over by hate and rage. And what he did was he lifted one of the frames up with a forklift, and he intentionally dropped it on her head, you know? And so that's what caused the injury. And it almost took her life. And I mean, she had to deal with that for many years. But she survived it. But I mean, it was just like a horrible like thing. And
Did he go
so,
to prison?
no, he didn't. She didn't press charges because it was an accident at first, right? Like she thought it was,
Right.
until many years later she asked him, and like, what happened in this whole thing, and that's when he explained to her like, this is
Oh,
what
man.
happened. And she just kind of forgave him and didn't press charges. I mean, it was her choice. I probably would have done different for sure, you know, but you know, that's just her choice, you know.
Wow. So that is quite the incredible story. I mean, I can understand how someone could get possessed that way to do something like that. This person must have been already filled with that type of anger, rage, and hate already,
Hmm.
and they weren't very happy. And then this woman, your mother, is doing these spiritual practices.
Yeah,
Who
during
is
that time.
having, yeah, and is having these negative attachments or energies surrounding her, then these energies stay with us. And that when we go in someone else's auric field, essentially in their energetic presence, then this energy can now, oh, I can inhabit this guy. He's already ready for me to come
Mhm.
in, and then goes in there and, oh, I'm going to mess with her even more. Let's get him to accidentally, quote unquote, accidentally drop this on her, and let's see what happens.
Yeah, because it's a give and take, and that's the biggest thing we learned from the witchcraft world, because we were doing these rituals because we wanted prosperity, or we wanted healing of a certain thing, or down to little monotonous things like we wanted to find something that we lost, and we would conjure up a finder spirit, you know, and we would find things that, you know, with like weird ways by using a
Sounds
flame.
like Catholics would always pray to Saint Anthony to find things.
Oh yeah,
Mhm.
that's kind of pretty much like that, but
Mhm.
this had a weird name because it was, you know, obviously wasn't Catholicism, but I do believe there's a lot of the same similar spirits behind that, you know.
Mhm.
And so we were doing that, and so, you know, we would get like miraculous things that would happen to us, but also all these other bad things were even worse, you know. And so it was just kind of progressively got worse and worse over time. And so yeah, you definitely don't want to mess with that stuff, you know.
Yeah, yeah, that's wild. And then the first time she prayed, it was gone. And an MRI actually showed that her brain was put into place, in the correct place, and that
Yeah.
is just really incredible.
Also, my father, same thing. His liver was destroyed, and then I know it it's possible for the liver to regenerate, but it happened like overnight, and they
Wow.
went and so then they checked his liver, and they were like, "Dude, what did you do? What happened?" And it's like you're like you have like a brand new liver. Like, what's going on here? And he's like, "Nothing. We don't. We went started going to church. That's about
It
it.
went to the doctor. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
so yeah, exactly, the doctor. So
Mhm.
that was that. So again, I struggled with because I saw a lot of that while I was there. I saw people get cured of cancer. I saw people get cured of AIDS, like documented. I saw a lot of people, even like just a headache or regular sickness. Will pray and they're just like, dude, it's gone. Like my fever's gone. Like little stuff to
Wow.
big stuff.
Sounds
And
like you had
so
some powerful prayer warriors over there.
yeah, a lot of prayer wars. I'm got to tell you, they remind me of what the Book of Romans talks about, the people that had zeal but no knowledge. That's
Okay.
what they are. They were so zealous to give their hearts to God, but they were also being manipulated by the leaders. And
Mm.
so, yeah, man. I mean, there's a lot of honest people, a lot of honest believers there. So I know that, but I just personally, for me, I'm like, dude, this is not a good place. And I tried to teach some of that when they kind of put me in charge a little bit of the youth group for a little, and I was like sneaking in Bible studies in there, and that didn't really fly so well. And they're like, nah, let's not do that.
Wow.
So,
That's very telling when you're being told, "Don't look at the book that, we're supposed to be observing as this was our creator." If they're observing Jesus Christ as God, then they're
mhm,
saying he's the creator and he was speaking in this book. And if they're saying, "No, don't go look at that book, look at me," then they're replacing God with themselves. And I mean, this is just a very dangerous territory
yep,
to be in when those types of things are occurring.
yeah, and they would use a lot of verses out of context to kind of prove their point. So they'll be
Yeah,
like, they'll
happens
use
often.
I forgot what verse was that they used all the time. They're like the letter kills, but the spirit edifies is the one they used a lot, and it was talking about Paul. I believe it was Paul. Was talking about the letter of the law. He was talking about how the law condemns you, and it was a whole thing about grace and the difference between law and all that stuff, and it was like a huge explanation on that. But they only take that one verse and see it says, you see, if you read this too much, it kills you, like it kills your spirituality. But
Mm.
the spirit edifies, and the spirit comes out of us. Like we're the ones teaching you these things that spirit inspired. So believe us, don't believe what you're reading too much, because things like that. So
They say that verse today, people would take the letter as, the V, and it would make sense.
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, so they would do a lot of that stuff and jump
Right.
around,
Twist
quite
it
a bit.
up for whatever you need it for.
So
Indeed.
when you were saying you were doing part of witchcraft and rituals and stuff, are you talking about maybe some new age type of stuff with the crystals and incense burning, or are you talking about cutting chicken's head off or using blood and
Yeah, blood.
feathers?
Yeah, blood, feathers,
Oh,
chicken,
wow.
that stuff.
Real dark
Or-
stuff.
yeah. Well, it definitely is dark, but they convince you that if you do it,
Oh.
if you use that in the energy towards the good, that it's good, but it's not, and it's
Right.
just not it. And so we would bury things with the rituals, like just depend things that represented what we wanted, certain, like you said, certain crystals or certain thing that we needed, even down to like get some oil and honey and put the person that you want them to fall in love with you, their name inside, and do the certain ritual, like things
Mm.
that seem harmless. And then things like that. I remember doing that once, and that's actually one of the things that the church started doing where I was going. And I'm just like, yet again, another thing, like down to the little things. We were doing these like little things that were like rituals, and they were just not. They're not a biblical approach to anything. Why would like we just don't do that? And so,
Mhm.
um, yeah, man, that's what we were doing for sure. Yeah.
So I can say, like, I've caught myself, not caught myself, but reflected upon that I did a ritualistic type of thing, but it
Okay.
wasn't anything to that degree. Like, when I had demons chase out of me, because I had demons in me. I had 400 pounds of chicken. It's funny, we're just talking about chicken, but I had 400 pounds of chicken and cheese fall on me. I fell on my root chakra, my tailbone, and then for whatever reason, the day before that, I had the feeling to go get a big bag of tobacco from the tobacco store, that I wanted to burn tobacco. And so the injury happens, and then the next day we're having a fire, and I'm putting tobacco in the fire, just like I just have the feeling to do it. And I find out later that's a Native American practice to ward off evil spirits. So 2 days after my injury is when I was saved by Christ, and it was burning this tobacco was, I guess, part of this 3-day ritual type of thing that I was in. So the day that the demons were chased out of me, I was drinking tea, to relieve the pain. I was in so severe pain, I could barely walk. And so, I'm doing these ritualistic, quote unquote, ritualistic types of things that I
Without
don't know that they are.
realizing.
Yeah. And I'm not realizing it, but it was also something that led to something beautiful. But I wasn't going against anyone's free will. I wasn't using any type of living beings in part of this, or burying anything. A lot of people, they'll like write something down and then burn it on a piece of paper, like, I don't want this in me anymore. Something like that. Well, I mean, it depends on what you're writing down, but these practices can very much be manipulated into dark things when you're violating someone's free will. Like you said, with the honey and the oil, that doesn't seem like you're doing anything. But if it's violating someone's free will by saying, I'm going to get this person to love me, then that is a dark thing. So when we're just doing these things, like when I did that, uh, I was just led to do those things, and it did for me was have Christ save me. It really did, and it was the most incredible thing. So a lot of people have probably experienced something of this type of nature, and they think that it's all okay. Then they're like, well, then I can just do anything because it's all good. But there is a very fine line, and you're not supposed to be doing those types of things. It's only in severe cases where that type of thing is actually needed, and it's only by the guiding hand of God that we would do those things. Like, I didn't know that what I was doing at the time, and it's only when I reflected on it, once the demon came out of me, I was like, "Oh my god, I've been doing a 3-day ritual to relieve myself of these demons." And it's only because I had demons in me that I needed that type of saving. It's not just your regular person would do this. Maybe they're opening themselves up to something that they don't want. Whereas with me, it was only darkness was there, and it had to, Christ was like, "This is the way that it'll come out of you."
Yeah, most of the time, like, the thing people don't realize is where there's anything that looks kind of like a ritual in the Bible, is because they don't know the context of why Jesus or God, like the Father, decided to do a specific thing in a certain way. For example, like, people miss, like, why would Jesus spit on the dirt and make mud and put it on the blind guy? And, like, that's kind of weird, right? And I've heard all kinds of kind of supernaturalized messages for that. But, like, if we don't, like, study a little bit of the history, especially the medicinal practices during that time, which is actually sounds like it's like unattainable to know those things. But if you buy a study Bible, a lot of that stuff is actually in the notes, but nobody really even, a lot of unfortunately, a lot of believers don't even get into that. They just kind of read through it. And but yeah.
Whoa, what happened?
Uh-oh.
Hold on a sec. Something, I guess his internet must have stopped. Here we go. We're going to take a quick time out to hear a word from our sponsor. Have you awakened to the horrors of this world? Are you running around lost, confused, and scared? Have you seen an uptick in conspiracy theories lately? Welcome to hell! Did you know the Bible tells us that this world is ruled over by Satan? Are you familiar with Satan offering Jesus Christ the kingdom of earth if he were to pledge his allegiance? It's crazy, I know!
The first time I heard that the word Nephilim was in the Bible, and that it roughly translates to giants,
I knew I wasn't being told the truth.
Once I found out that the same bloodlines of U.S. presidents and British royalty could be traced back to the Old Testament bloodline of Cain, I knew I had found the truth.
Is everything a conspiracy? Of course it is. Satan is conspiring with fallen angels and demons to keep you uneducated and disconnected from God. But God has a plan for all this, and God wins.
Oh, yeah.
All the answers are right there in the Bible. Check out some of these customer reviews.
After waking up to conspiracy theories, I felt lost. I didn't know what to do or how to do it. Then I found the teachings of Jesus Christ, and all that immediately changed.
It was weird, going from a conspiracy theorist to a Bible thumper. But it's all there. I mean, Christians have known about all of this for hundreds, even thousands of years.
If you're unsure of life right now, pick yourself up a Bible. All of today's craziness has been prophesied thousands of years ago in the most popular literature ever.
With the Bible, I was able to find peace in this chaotic life.
Thanks to the Bible, I've been able to find my true purpose in life.
For the low cost of free! On thousands of websites, in thousands of churches, American bookshelves, and even prisons, the Bible can be yours today. No more confusion, no more inner turmoil, no more fringe theories, but actual truth.
Thanks, God.
Thanks, Bible.
Warning, this product has been altered by humans up to no good. It has had things deleted, added, and changed many times over. Your local pastor may tell you this is silly. Trust your gut and find people who are doing the research and providing the evidence.
Conspiracy theories woke me up. The Bible put it into context. I am now free of fear and filled with loving compassion. Thank you, Jesus. And now, back to the show. All right, so you're back. Yeah, you cut out.
Somebody didn't want us to hear what you had to say. What were you saying?
Yeah, talking about the study Bible.
Yeah. My FBI agent's like, there he goes again with that Bible. No, what I was saying is that Jesus did that because during that time specifically, they thought that spitting on people was a medicinal practice, and doing that to people, like they believed that the spit actually had medicine. So when he did that, it was like a telegraphing to everyone who was watching, to everyone there, like, I'm the healer, I'm healing you. You know what I mean? And when he wiped his eyes and everything, they were like, oh my gosh, like I can see, and it was like, what happened? And so it was like there's just like things that we miss, little details that really just kind of amplify the message versus just like, well, Jesus did a thing where he spit on the ground, or when he sent like the pigs into the water, all of that is intentional. It's telegraphing to the supernatural world of something, when he walked on
the
water.
demons going into the abyss.
That's interesting that you said that spitting was like, it was medicinal, and now it's a weapon.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah, it's like one of the most disrespectful things you could do to somebody is spit on them. But what I'm picking up on when Jesus did that is, well, the dirt is the clay, and Jesus is the creator, so he mixed his DNA with the clay, and he healed
to bandage.
Yeah, and there's a message of redemption there, because that's one thing that I think people also are forgetting, that he is also going to genetically redeem not just the earth but ourselves. You know what I mean? And he's kind of right there exemplifying that out of me you're going to be redeemed completely. You'll be healed from all your physical ailments and things like that. Maybe not in this world, but definitely in the next world. And that's just part. It's like a foreshadowing of what's to come, and but it's definitely something we can definitely tap into, because he said, hey, you can do these miracles as well. And it's something that I experienced myself in my walk, and I know that these things are it. So I always, if I feel sick, I'm like currently I thought I was going through some medical issues myself, and I'm praying for a miracle, but I'm also doing all the work that I need to do to get healthy, as far at least naturally. I'm not really into taking all the big pharma stuff, but like I'm really just like, I got to get healthy. No, there's no excuse. I got to do the work, and I'm praying for a miracle, because I know that these things can happen.
Yeah, and that's what I've been preaching lately is when I end the conversation, I always like to ask my guests, and we'll do that at the end, is how their number one grounding technique. And I've been a guest on a lot of podcasts lately, and that some of them, quite a few of them actually, have asked me what my best spiritual practice is. So it's kind of like the inverse of what I ask. And I say the best spiritual practice is to heal your relationships and heal your body in a natural way, is to really, if I'm eating the wrong foods, replace that with something healthy. If I'm not exercising enough, exercise some more. If I have the capability of doing it, put my feet on the grass and the ground, go in the dirt, do gardening.
Oh, you do that too?
Oh yeah, yeah. We have a food forest being built.
Coming.
Yeah, in the
Coming
next
soon.
few months. Yeah, we do a lot of that type of stuff. So uh, the best spiritual practices to me are grounding techniques and healing yourself and your relationships, and that's what we're here for. I mean, if someone was to ask me in a nutshell, what are you here for? It's to better myself as much as I can by healing all my relationships and healing my body. And
Mhm.
for some people, if they realize this when they're 10, 12 years old and they don't have relationships that really need healing, I'm sure they still do to some degree, but if they don't have the relationships that need the healing and they don't need to heal their body because they're in good condition, well, then you're going to do amazing things because you are already in touch with the creator in a way that most people aren't. But, there's always the relationships with technology that, doing this, it's not healthy for us. It's interdimensional travel, manipulation of space and time in order to be in front of one another, in order to talk on the phone, in order to look on the internet. It's really interdimensional travel. And this is how I believe demons get in here or have gotten in here. I believe that we're peering into the abyss when we do this, and the abyss can come out. And it's also being spread through graphene oxide. That's what they are. That's their conscious being, and they need the metals and they need the different. I don't want to say goo, but things that they can manipulate to move. Things that are like water, but maybe a little bit thicker, a little more substance, so that they can control it,
Mhm.
like venom.
Blood.
Well,
Yeah.
similar to blood, sure. So
Yeah.
what's your take on all of that I just said and demons, where they come from?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'll start from the biblical perspective that I think a lot of modern Christians think that demons are fallen angels, which they're not, um, and the when we start reading and really look into like what the Bible says, even in the New Testament, when you look, they're never called, fallen angels or anything. They're called like evil spirits, or they're called unclean spirits, and things like that. And when you start researching again the history of what they believed, what the writers believe, which I highly suggest you do.
Yeah,
Stop
you
reading
need to
it.
know that. Yeah.
Mhm. You need to know what was Mark thinking. What was Paul thinking? What were they thinking when they wrote these things? Instead of you trying to interpret it into
From your
modern day.
own perspective, right?
Yeah, because I mean, we have all these lenses, right? We have our culture barriers, we have language barriers because of the culture. Then we just have, we just assume that, we're at the pinnacle of our understanding the language, and we forget that people like idioms and things like that were around forever. So there's a lot of idioms in the Bible, and when we don't understand these things, then we come up with doctrines. That's why we have all these different denominations, because the Bible says this, the Bible says that, and I'm like, you're not understanding that verse. You didn't ask yourself what that writer was thinking of. And when we do, you start understanding, like when you read the one chapter of Jude, it's very clear that at one point there was fallen entities that came to earth, and they decided to rebel against God, and had mixed with women, and had these kind of hybrid children, kind of which we understand as, the polytheistic world would understand it as the demigods that we understand from now, like all the demigods and like all the Greek gods and things like that. All that came from the fallen ones. Some of the fallen ones are the ones we understand as the Egyptian gods, and the main gods, because they're the ones rebelling against God. And there's this cosmic geography, or a cosmic battle, happening in the Old Testament that people aren't aware of. They just kind of think that God is randomly taking over land, and he's just like, I want that land for myself. Get rid of the Canaanites, get rid of the Jebusites, the Perizzites, get rid of all these tribes, Joshua is cleansing the land. And if we read it in the context of those were people, then atheists would be kind of right about God saying that he's crazy and out of his mind, like even wipe out children and women and everyone, So I've heard them try to explain away that the reason God did that is always, because they were so sinful. They were so sinful. But it's like that's almost like a throwaway line. They were so sinful, God had to get rid of them, which, there's more to it. And it's so sad.
They weren't human.
Yeah, they weren't human. And even the babies, nothing was human. He was doing a cleansing of the land, a cleansing of anything that was a hybrid,
Right.
And so that's Joshua's doing. And when we start reading books that even Jesus quoted and even Paul was quoting, like the book of Enoch, you start getting a little bit clearer understanding of the culture of what demons are in their mind's eye,
Yeah.
And in that book of Enoch, God kind of judges all of these watchers, all of these fallen watchers, which are not angels, they're different, they're angel. That's another thing. Angels and demons is kind of a throwaway line that they also use, and it's not a throwaway, but like a blanket statement.
Yeah.
And that's not what it is. I mean, angel, you can be an angel, I can be an angel, because angel,
Right.
all it means is you're sending a message,
Right.
You're a messenger. That's it. It's a job title,
Mhm.
and demons are, and they assign those together, and
Right.
same
They're
thing.
opposing forces.
Mm-hmm. And also, like I said, a demon could take a message, and he's literally being an angelos, an angel because he's taking this message, and so, there's a lot of that, including down to the main evil guy that we understand as Satan,
Yeah.
The same thing. Satan is used in the Hebrew language in the Old Testament quite often as a title to whoever that person was opposing, because it's what it means, the
Right.
opposer, the adversary,
Mm-hmm.
And so so that is something huge that we need to understand, because we start reading like the book of Job, and we have this understanding that all of a sudden Satan can go to God's throne, and then he can go back down to Job and then circle the land and then go back up to God. It's like, I thought, when did this happen? And wasn't Satan thrown out? Does he have access sometimes? Did God allow this one instance? So, all these different things is the things that I hear that have nothing to do with the context of the Old Testament, because in the Old Testament, there were other council members that work with God that had access to God. They were part of his council. It's called the divine council, and you can read about that in like Deuteronomy 32. You can read about that in Psalms 82, Psalms 89. And you start seeing that God is working with these people, or in the book of Kings, when he's asking entities, how do we get rid of Ahab?
Mhm.
And they all have their opinion on what they should do to get rid of Ahab. And it's not like God needs help, but he's just like us. He's allowing these spiritual entities to work with him,
Right.
to use their free will. Like, what can we do? He oversees what's going on.
Right.
And he judges them when they do wrong. That's what you see in Psalms 82, when he was telling them, hey, you guys are messing up big time. And if you don't fix it, you're going to die like men. I'm going to make sure you're done, So you need to bring justice to the land,
And it's interesting with the Job thing that everyone does think that Satan is presented as this one being, and that really throws a wrench into things. But when you're talking about, okay, it's the council, this divine council, that maybe they're saying, okay, this is just one of somebody who's trying to be devil's advocate, as we say. They're trying to play adversary. Like, okay, I bet you that if I take away this from him, that he won't worship you the same, that he's only worshiping you because you're so kind to him. And this is maybe a jealousy from one of these beings on this divine council, if you will, that is playing adversary. I'm playing devil's advocate to see just what would happen if I take away this part and if I take away that. So it's not that it's God versus Satan, and they're in this realm that they are saying, you can do this. I'll give you the will to do everything but kill him. but it's actually one of the divine council, or maybe even several members of the divine council. They're just playing devil's advocate. I think is a modern day term for it, rather than saying Satan.
Yeah,
That's what it seems like.
yeah, you see that there's a lot of entities that sometimes do not agree with God and make these decisions, and God's like, "That's not going to work, man. That's not going to work." But
Yeah.
they just kind of challenge him, and ultimately, we know that quite a few of them decided we're out of here. We're not working for God anymore.
Yeah.
And those are the ones that made a pact. And by the way, this is not my stuff. This is all stuff from an actual scholar, from Dr. Michael Heiser. And you can get, I'm not, obviously I don't work for him or nothing, but this is where I got all this information. This is not just like random Bible study that I'm coming up with all this stuff. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's a scholar who speaks the ancient Semitic languages. He helped translate the Dead Sea Scrolls to get a lot of our modern translations, and things like that. I mean, that's his job to look into the languages, translate it as best as they can. And he works for Logo. He used to work for Logos Bible Software. And I mean, he knows what he's saying when it comes to this thing. And that was part of his thing. Is he came up with this whole, he didn't come up with it, but he realized that there was this divine council situation happening, and that there's a lot more going on in the spiritual world than just God calling the shots,
Yeah.
even with the ones that are on God's side, there's
For sure.
so
Yeah.
I wanted to say that because I don't want people to think I was making it up,
Right, of course. And I had this this vision. So I'm very connected with God in this way that I just get visions. Sometimes I hear things, and it's a whole it's like a whole scenario is playing out that like right before my eyes. And lately, I stopped meditate. I was meditating every day for 30 minutes every morning for a while.
Years.
Yeah, 2 years or so. And I mean, that got me to a certain point. But now, for the last month or so, I've been reading the Bible, and then I'll close my eyes and I'll just listen. So it's a different approach altogether. So what I've been doing, and that's been better for me than the other stuff. And it's not that the other stuff wasn't amazing, it was, but this is getting me more clear information. So we had an occurrence happen. I'm not going to get into it, but we had something occur to us that wasn't, it wasn't a good thing. And as soon as I closed the Bible and I'm going to close my eyes, I start to hear what's happening in this spiritual realm. And it's like there's a firmament, that there's several angels, 4 or 5 of them, just or maybe even 6, were sitting on top of this firmament, and they're telling me why the things happened that happened. And they're saying, "Oh, well, so in order to make this person better, we entice them with their with this vice that they have. So we like dangled something in front of them, and they had to participate in using that thing in order to recognize that they had something wrong with them so that they could change it." And I'm like, "Okay, that seems legit." And then I hear a big booming thunderous voice is saying, if you know that they have a problem, this is God speaking to them. He's saying, if you, and so you, like I said, it was like a round part was they were sitting on. Then there was a higher part that was like a flat top. And then there was a triangle point. And this voice is coming from this triangle point. And he is saying, well, if you know they have a problem, then why don't you go to them in their dreams? Why don't you go to them in their thoughts and say, this is something you should get rid of? Why do you entice them with something? So what did he, one of the angels fired back and said something, and he picked him up and threw him into the lake of fire. And he said, that is not how you handle these situations. You go to them where you can. You can't interfere in their everyday life. You can't bring forth, you can't make things occur so that they have this vice in front of them to see what they'll do, to recognize if they have a problem. They know they have a problem. Help them get rid of the problem. Don't bring that problem to the surface by feeding into it. It was very enlightening to me.
Yeah. I mean, that's interesting. The symbolism I was seeing there. That you said you dreamt this?
No, this was right after I read the Bible on my daily meditation.
Okay, got it. Yeah, no, that's very interesting because I feel like there's so many things that we tend to dismiss when we don't pay attention to God's voice. You know what I mean? I mean, sometimes he speaks so clearly, and you're like, nah, I'm not gonna do that. You know, but and I think it helps to really study and sit there and think, you know, and really just like, what did I just read, you know, and really just start to listen. That's probably something that most of us don't do, because we think, oh, I mean, at least I used to read it. I'm like, cool, I did my daily reading. I'm out. Let's go. I didn't think about it. You know what I mean? And just God's just gonna, I don't know. I was reading it as if I can just. We were taught this at the other church. Just read it. Don't really study it, but it's like your daily bread. It's like eating the food. You don't know what it is. But you feel full, so you're good. You know what I mean? That's all you need for spiritual nourishment. But that's not how it works. You know,
Right.
You obviously have to know what it is, and then you have to make it practical and be like, how can I apply this to my life? You know what I mean?
Right.
And so
And you have to contemplate it on that day, you know? And that's the thing is when when the angels first said that to me, I'm like, okay, that makes sense, you know? And then I hear God's voice and I'm like, oh, that makes more sense. That is more wise. So, and I can see how this would be a fallen angel thing, that they would go against what God's will is, because God
Yep.
wants them to just watch us. He doesn't want them to participate in our lives in any way. And they're allowed to come to us in the dream world. They're allowed to come to us through our thoughts, and just you know, so we don't even know where thoughts come from, honestly. You know, when we have our thoughts, sometimes when we get this information, like I hear other people's thoughts sometimes before they say it out loud, and it's this strange occurrence where I'm not sure how, and it's not all the time, but it's sometimes, and it happens often enough where, and I could never say with any accuracy when it's going to happen, but when I hear it in my mind, then I hear them say it. I'm like, oh, okay, you know, I put the two together. So, like, we're in this weird place where do thoughts come from? So angels could project thoughts to us. I'm sure that they do at certain times. I'm sure God does this as well,
Yeah.
and I think that's a more practical approach to helping people with their problems than to put one of their vices in front of them. You know, that's not a practical thing to do, because what's going to happen is the demon that you're feeding through that vice is the fleshly nature, the earthly nature is going to take over. The urge is going to almost always win out in that situation.
And a lot of that manipulation can also come from going back to the demons thing. It can come from these spiritual entities that are demons as well.
Yeah.
They can whisper ideas and things like that. Those are like considered the fiery darts that come, you know, like you need to watch for those, you know. And so you see a lot of that happening in the Old Testament. There's a lot of these entities involved, especially in Deuteronomy 32. And when you see what's going on there, you're like, there's a lot of like negative power, like working against the nations of the earth, and they're just kind of creating these these groups, and that's why I said cosmic geography, because there was assigned gods to certain regions, but they were actually not gods, lowercase g gods. And I would say they're self-proclaimed gods before Christians get a little too triggered there. Because I remember I did that episode and they were like, there's only one God. I'm like, okay, easy,
Right.
easy. You know, like, so at one point, this council decided we're not working for God. They have sex with women. They create these hybrids. And then when those hybrids die in the flood and all that stuff, the leftover spirit couldn't go to, there was no place for them. So those are the wandering spirits, you know,
Bound
you
to
see
earth.
that. And you see that in the New Testament when Jesus talks about these unclean spirits, that they're just kind of roaming the earth, seeking for a place to inhabit, you know. And this is what he's talking about. These are the same ones that he's talking about that happened, that the flood mostly were wiped out from that, you know.
Right.
And that's along with creatures that, I mean, ungodly creatures that existed that are not,
Abominations.
that are not really Nephilim, but there's these just entities that, you know, where we get the mythologies of all these like weird creatures, because there was a lot of mixing that with humans.
Right.
And interestingly enough, that's what's happening nowadays, right? Where we're
Right.
doing that genetic splicing, and we are trying to mix human genes with, different things. I mean, they're
We're
very open.
machines.
Right.
Like you just did the pig heart.
Well, that's the ultimate goal. Is
Mhm.
it starts with all this genetic mutation, and the ultimate goal is to make us ready for transhumanism, to prepare
Right.
us to become human 2.0.
Right.
But that was, the funny thing is, it's not a new thing, right? It's what was going on in the Old Testament with these gods trying to make humans even better than they were according to them. That's what these fallen ones were doing. And so when these spirits were wandering, those are the demons that we're talking about here, and that inhabit people. And it's one of the reasons that when you're fully possessed, your body completely contorts and hunches over, because that spirit is like not supposed to be fitting in a human body. You know what I mean? It
Right.
belongs to another creature completely shaped differently, So
Yeah.
it's just trying to adjust to the body. And a lot of the people that we saw that would get fully possessed you were just like, that person should not be able to do that, or they had abnormal strength where it was crazy. Where I saw a 12-year-old girl pick up my co-host Omar like nothing, just with like her hands extended and everything. I can't even do that, and just lift him like nothing and just growling at him, voice changing and everything.
Wow.
Like that is not psychosomatic. Like that is crazy. That is a demon,
Yeah.
and so you see this weird contortion that people do, and that's the why, because these they come from these larger bodies, or these creatures that were deformed, that were different. They were, like you said earlier, an abomination. And all of these things are just seeped, it's permeated in all of our modern day culture. And this is the battle that we're in the midst of, that most people don't understand. You can see it in in almost all your music now. You can see it in all the movies and all your TV shows. The return of the Nephilim is the thing that is like the biggest propaganda Disney has, with Marvel. That is what Disney is pushing, like, where all of these heroes that are Nephilim are
Yeah.
are,
Men of
are
renown.
right. These are our heroes, right? And so they're painting them as the Nephilim are your heroes. Like, these modified humans are your heroes, and everyone wants to be like, well, I want to be Spider-Man, I want to be Superman, I want to be, whatever. And I know Superman's part of DC, before I get some slack for that, but they
But
have,
all of them, all the superheroes.
right. And DC gets even deeper into the ancient god stuff. If you saw Justice League, it was Saturnalia worship, bring him back using the cube. The cube brought Superman back to life, and he's the messianic figure I mean,
Right.
the people who created Superman, he was representation of their future Christ, or Moses, which was a Christ figure. I mean, his name is representative of God, Kal-El, Jor-El. All of that means, like vessel of God in Hebrew. It means all of these things, and people don't really realize, like, these are connections to ancient past, and we just think, oh, that's cool, we have Marvel movies are just modern. But I'm like, no, man, that's the battle we're fighting. That's the battle you're in the midst of, and you're getting it sold to you as propaganda, like this is what it is. And I mean, people are falling for it. Like, I even asked I think Omar on the show, like, hey, what power would you want if they offered you, like, if they can genetically splice you, what power would you like? And he kind of chose a power. And I'm like, you see, you fell for it, bro. You fell for it. You want to be a Nephilim, man. You want to be changed. And he's like, oh yeah, I'm like, yes, that's my whole point,
Right.
So obviously I enjoy films and things like that, probably more so than ever, just because I can kind of see the propaganda. And I'm like, this is what it is really trying to say. And I see it so often that it kind of blows my mind, where if people just knew a little bit about the hybrids, the chimeras, and the Nephilim, and all of this ancient biblical stuff, it will really bring to life what you're watching today, like The Witcher, all the Marvel movies. I mean, the Marvel shows. It all
Yeah.
has to do with that. It's all related,
Yeah, that's a lot of interesting stuff you said there. And I wanted to go back to the Earthbound Spirits that we were talking about, because that's essentially what Nephilim and Raphaim even are,
Mhm.
is that they're earthbound spirits. And so in modern day, if we were to make computers or robotics, if we were to make them sentient, they would have no place to go. So anyone out there who's not understanding what earthbound means, uh, that they would have no place to go when they died. When you would kill the machine, the sentience, the consciousness, if you will, would have no place to go. Like we would go to heaven. We're made from God, so we have the chance to ascend to heaven. But we also have if unclean spirits are people who are doing things that aren't going to get them into heaven. So they're going to be walking the earth in purgatory as earthbound spirits, and they're going to mess with people. This is what ghosts kind of are. This is what apparitions are, that they're going to be tricksters because they don't know what they're doing. Some of them don't even know that they're dead. They're just on earth and they don't know where they are. They don't know why people can't interact with them. There's a lot of that stuff going on, and I release a lot of these spirits, and the only way I release them is having them accept the name of Jesus Christ. I
Mm.
have done some incredible things working with people who have had thousands of souls trapped within them that were placed in them purposely, that gave them multiple personality disorder.
Yep.
And the way I speak to these souls and these spirits by having them accept the name of Jesus Christ, and the more belief that they put into them saying it, the easier it is that they ascend. And
Mm.
I mean, I've had this happen over and over. I mean, hundreds, thousands of times that I've done this.
Mhm.
And the only way that it works, and it works right away, is the name of Jesus Christ. So they're no longer bound to earth. This is like selling your soul. You think you sold your soul, so when you die, you stay here. They trick you into thinking you sold something that you don't own, so that you, in your own consciousness, know, because you have this guilt and shame on you, and you have a fear and a repercussion that if you go get judged, you're going to burn in hell. But you judge yourself and you keep yourself here from, you don't even get to the part of going to the life review because you hold yourself down. So there's so many different things that occur when to have these earthbound spirits, but the ones that we're talking about with the Nephilim, especially, that they don't have a place to go. There is nothing created for them. They're abominations that should have never been created. And
Mm.
this is what these hybrids that you're talking about, these all these offshoots of Nephilim really are. And I heard something yesterday. A gentleman was saying that Rapha means heal. Raphael means healer of God. Raphaim are the healers of the darkness. They're the ones who turn from Raphael
Mm.
to Raphaim,
Mm.
as well as being unclean spirits that oh, he disappeared again. We're getting too close to the truth, my friend.
Getting knocked out, man.
Yeah. So what I was saying, Raphael, some of the Raphaim turn from healers of God to healers of their own
Mhm.
determination. So kind of like we were saying earlier with how you started in your church, that they were doing healings in the name of God, and then they started to distort it into what they were healing. And
Mhm.
this is what I really feel is getting to what you were just saying with these Nephilim superheroes that are going to come, that we have these very powerful healers on earth. And I mean, it's a very real thing, whether they're from God, they're doing things in the name of Christ, or they're doing things in the name of something else. It exists. And the ones that aren't doing it in the name of Christ are feeding themselves, and they are feeding evil. So they'll have superpowers, and they'll be able to do things. Maybe it's not flying, maybe it's not shooting spider webs out of their hands, but it's some kind of superpower where, I have superpowers, but I use it in the name of Christ, that
Mhm.
I'm healing people in the name of, or I'm not even doing the healing. I'm just guiding them,
Facilitating.
yeah, and leading them to Christ so that they can heal themselves and have Christ heal them. But if
Mhm.
they're not doing that, then they're feeding themselves, and they're feeding other entities that they don't know that they're working with, because they are in this mindset that everything is it's all good, it's all bad, it doesn't really matter, there is no evil. uh they're of this mindset. They've been led this way because they find out this information that they can't possibly know any other way, so they feed into it. And I really feel that this is coming to a head in our lifetime, that there's going to be some kind of I don't know if I'm going to say a battle, but there's going to be judgment is going to happen. It really is. I feel it in my every inch of my being that we are in the time of judgment, and we are the ones who uh, we all I believe didn't accept Christ at one time, and we all died, and now we have been given the chance, and we are here now to accept Christ or not. And we are all going through our own thing, but I really feel that there's going to be a lot of people, a lot of spirits anyway, that are thrown into the lake of fire. I mean, I've seen it happen already. The one time I just mentioned the other day, that was nothing compared to what I've seen and experienced before. So this is just getting started for us, I think.
Yeah, I mean, you said some interesting things there. I think like you said, I don't think it's going to be a huge battle, and maybe there is, because I think obviously God wins, but these entities are still battling it out. These are the powers and principalities that Paul talks about. These are the because if we think in terms of kingdom, and you become a citizen of the kingdom of God, and we spread that truth. Every time someone believes in Jesus, you're creating another citizen, and in the spiritual realm, you're literally expanding the kingdom. The kingdom is expanding, and that is a direct attack on this cosmic geographical war I'm talking about. Because when these entities fell, that they were assigned to God, and you can read that in the Tower of Babel situation, when they decided to rebel against God and do the Tower of Babel, God said, "I'm giving these people over to these entities, to these gods." But the job of those gods was to bring them back to God, but they decided to make their own tribes and make their own things go on there. And there was that rebellion there. And so they all got assigned to these certain geographical areas, which became the polytheistic world. They all started worshiping those gods because those gods demanded worship from the people instead of taking it to God. Okay? So when that happened, there was all this separation. And so all these miracles are happening around in the Old Testament. And they were all about humiliating whatever deity they worshipped in that area. When Joshua was doing the war and doing the cleansing and all that, and he stopped, the sun and the moon from moving, it wasn't just to show that God can do something like that, It was literally the gods that they were worshiping in that area was the moon god and the sun god. And to stop those two, he was showing them that he was the most high God on top of the gods that they worshiped. He was humiliating their God, every time he did that. And so when he did those kinds of things, the people would bow down and turn over to God because he was defeating God. He was defeating the gods of that land,
Right.
Every single time we see these certain miracles, they are tied to the geographical God. When he walked on water, or when he calmed the storm, with his word. In that area, they worship basically Thor, the storm god, like the all of that stuff. So when he did that, and when they heard about that in that area, they were like, what? How did he overcome that God? You know what I mean?
Well, it's interesting because that brings up the thought of the book of Enoch tells us that there are different angels who are in charge of moving I'm using the word angels, but there's different beings that are in charge of moving the sun and the moon. So they're just doing their job, and now they're being worshipped, and God just tells them stop. And
Well, it could be that some of them were there and they rebelled against him, and maybe he assigned somebody else. It could be that where there's these rebelled ones, and they still have some sort of power, and they try to manipulate it and use it for their own agenda versus using it for what they were supposed to be assigned for,
Right. Or if God just tells the storm to stop, like the storm's just doing what it's supposed to do, but they're then worshiping it, and God says, no, stop the wind, stop the waves, because they're now applying the personification of God, when it is not personifying actual God, and they're obeying, and they're saying, yeah, we'll stop. Or he just makes it stop because he's created that.
And one of the biggest slap in the face moments for the gods, where God himself was saying it's going to go down. It's the biggest declaration of war that Jesus did, and they didn't know how it was going down up to this point, was actually when he went to do his transfiguration. When he transfigured.
I just read that Bible verse this morning.
Okay. So
Mark
when he
9.
transfigured, when he changed and he showed them his true glory, they were like, wow, this is amazing, right? But we don't realize is where he did that. We can pay attention to where he did that when we'll start understanding where that happened. And where he did that was in a place where all of those people in that area understood as the gates of hell. Okay.
Oh, wow.
And so those people in that area believed that those were the gates where all the entities that are evil come from, and they open up, and then that's the portal to the underworld, and very closely related to where the original fallen watchers made their pact to go against him, So when he showed his true power, it was a declaration of war to all of the entities that decided to go against God. You know what I mean?
Okay, so that was Mount Hermon that happened at?
Yes, right there. It's like at the base of off the side. Not only that, but not too far from that, we have Paneas, where they understand. And if you look into Pan, the horned god and all that stuff, where we get all
Nature God.
Yeah, it was just so much symbolism.
Lowercase g, we're saying here.
And so what I'm saying is all of this stuff is right there in the scripture, but we kind of overlook it. Oh yeah, he transfigured. He must have been real shiny, cool, and then move on from that verse, But no, there's more to it. He was declaring war, and even is like one of the bigger questions is why was John baptizing people, and why would they care to get baptized underwater?
We just asked that question last night.
Yeah, I was talking on another podcast, and we were talking about John the Baptist, and I asked him that question. I was like, well, why was John baptizing, and why were people wanting to be baptized? That is a really good question. Do you have an answer to that?
Well, yeah, the biggest thing is that we don't miss, especially in the Hebrew world and in the ancient world. There's the obvious connection to death and rebirth. There's the obvious connection to that. Almost every ancient religion had some sort of, you go into the underworld and then you come back, and then the symbolism was the water.
Right.
You go into the underworld and you come back, and you're different. We see that. I don't know if you
your sin.
Well, not only that, but like in the king, and like the Egyptians used to do something like that, and they thought that you come up. No, not the Egyptians. The
Sumerians.
No, you guys saw the movie The 300?
Yeah.
That guy that considered himself a god, and he was all golden, and
the Phoenicians.
Yeah, I'm not sure who that. I just read it too, and I'm escaping me. But there's a lot of ancient religions where they said they do that as a god ritual, as an apotheosis, a moment of apotheosis. Where you go underwater and you're now human, but then you come out from there and you are different. You are reborn into godhood. And there was a lot of that symbolism going on in the ancient world. And but in the Hebrew world, it's funny, when you did that, it was more than just the cleansing of your sin. It was one of the ways that you declared you're declaring not to be a part of one kingdom and becoming a citizen of another kingdom. It's one of the ways they did that, where it's like, I now declare to be part of, yes, God's kingdom. And because of that, I am now declaring war against the kingdoms that are in enmity with God. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it was yet another declaration of war. It's like, no, I'm not part of this kingdom anymore. I'm part of this new kingdom,
Right.
Which is one of the reasons it made such a political statement in that time, because they were like, wait, what's going on here? What? That's why political kings, anyone who was involved in either religion religion and politics were like inseparable in that time, especially in the Hebrew culture. So when that was happening, it was a huge political statement, and that's why it was riling a lot of political people up. They're like, dude, what's going on with this? Like, why is he doing that? And so that's part of it. Really, it's a long. I can go on for a long time for that, but there is so many levels to that. And when you read it, and that's what it is. He's declaring, You're declaring war against the things that are in enmity with God. You're declaring war against the actual entities that are against God. And yes, you are being reborn. And if you know what it means in the Hebrew culture to what it means to be in the image of God, it's not what we think like, oh, we look like him. I have fingers, I have toes. Nothing like that at all.
Act like him.
Not just act like that. Him. It's more than that. Think about this. I've made music, right? I play the piano. I've made my music. I thought about it, and I created it. I brought it into existence, right? Out of nowhere, I made that song. I brought something that didn't exist into existence. You and her have that capacity. We have the capacity. For example, the miracle that is to make another person. Like I have a child. I have a 15-year-old now. You can make copies of yourself. And then that person can create other things. We have the authority in us to create. We can obviously work the land, make the land fruitful. We have all this power within our hands. You have godlike power, but we give him the glory. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We have this ability that he has, limited, but in many ways we are like him. And not only that, in the Hebrew culture, being made in the image of God is also a label for being part of royalty. And that's the biggest thing that we also miss. We are now part of his royalty. We are prince and princess of the coming kingdom. You know what I mean?
Right.
And obviously we cast the crowns to him, and to him goes all the glory. But all of this is part of what it means to be in the image of God. And getting baptized is one of those things where you're literally becoming, this new creation, this new creature, almost in a sense like an apotheosis, but not really. It's just you're made in his image now, even closer, and you're declaring war, at the same time, and so there's
Wow.
going on there other than just remission of sins.
Yeah, and I think that the ancients knew that we were in a firmament and that there's the waters are outside of this place. So that kind of represents, you're going there and coming back by going in the water. Like you're saying, it's a symbolic thing. And also, like Mimi was saying, it's like a cleansing thing. We clean ourselves with water. So when we get baptized as children, how the church does it today, that's a false representation of what this means, because this means a baptism is, I'm ready to repent. I'm an adult and I have sinned and I'm ready to repent. I'm ready to come to the kingdom of Christ. So wash me of my sins. And now I'm giving myself over to this new kingdom, as you're saying. So this really puts a lot of things into perspective for me and understanding. I mean, you really helped me unlock that understanding that, yeah, it's a symbolic gesture of going to the underworld and coming back, born of a new kingdom, and washing yourselves free of those sins.
Yeah, and you got to have that consciousness to do that, because when you're a child, I mean, imagine telling a baby, "Oh, you're going to declare war against these entities, right?" It's just like there's so much to it that it has nothing to do
And
with.
it's actually like more of a representation of indoctrinating you into that false church. I was baptized as a Methodist as a baby. My daughter was baptized as Catholic as a baby, but none of that meant anything to us, in our thoughts, but it actually meant something to those places, because I feel like they had a hold on each of us throughout our life until we gave ourselves over to Jesus, and now they have no hold on us. That we're not being manipulated in whatever sense, in an energetic sense, that there's a piece of us that doesn't belong to them anymore. We declare that, no, we are in the spirit of Christ. And it doesn't even need to be an actual physical baptism. I mean, that can of course be symbolic for anybody, but it's just giving yourself the thoughts. I do spiritual baptisms on my website. That's like my number one thing is spiritual baptisms, that I bring Jesus Christ to people. And that is really what it's all about, is just giving yourself over to Jesus Christ and understanding that you want to repent, you understand that you have sinned, and you want to become better. And you're going to be brought to forks in the road of decision making, of, do you want to make the same mistake again, or do you want to do something better? And each time you make a better decision, you get closer to becoming to the glory of God, to the image of God, like you were just saying. So,
Yeah.
this is a great wealth of information you're bringing here.
Thank you. Like I said, give me a second here. Where are you? Where are you?
He's grabbing a book here for our audio audience.
Yeah. So I don't know if you can see it. It says The Unseen Realm.
Yeah, by Dr. Michael Heiser.
That's the one I suggest people read that I'm talking about. That's probably the one to start with. From there, he has one about demons, one about angels, all of the misunderstandings of those titles and what that means. Great scholar. Obviously, things, keep things with an open hand. I don't agree with everything I'm reading, but like the stuff that he's bringing up there's historical connections. He tells you where the stuff is if you want to go look for it. His websites are all linked to the research, so it's not just, hey, this is what I think and that's what it is, which is what I like. I don't like to just read it and then that's it. And so, yeah, that's where I got all that information from, is the cosmic geography, image of God, getting into the baptism and all kinds of things. It's all in there. And we miss it. It's in the scripture, but we don't see it because, we don't really look into the context in which it was written, so that's part of the problem,
Yeah. So as we wind down here, I want to ask you, like I said, that I think that we're in the stage of judgment is coming soon. There's a lot of things happening in our current day world. I think that 5G being turned on, actually, this episode will come out the day that it gets turned on in the United States, which is Tuesday the 19th. So I think that is part of this. I don't know exactly what it is, but part of the spiritual warfare. What is your take on where we are and what's about to happen in our world? What can we prepare for?
I think it's important to say this, especially in the Christian community. It's impossible to separate the natural from the supernatural, and especially when it comes to our bodies.
Yes.
Whether, even if you're like not even a real big believer in the supernatural or anything like that, I think we tend to forget that you, as a human being, are supernatural. Like, there's a supernatural aspect to you, and there's nothing you can do about it. It's just, you are actually, when you start looking into what the Old Testament says about the soul, it's really trippy, because it's basically saying that you don't have a soul. It's saying that you are a soul, that your body, your physical body, is directly connected, and there's an inseparability to the soul. And we tend to kind of parse those apart, but the Bible, when you start reading more carefully, it really teaches that they're inseparable. Like, you are one entity, and so, but not to get too deep into that, but that being said, everything that can affect us in the technological world is affecting your physical body, namely also your spiritual body. It's connected. We know that if you just do a little bit of research, it's not conspiracy theory. It used to be thought that way, but now that the research is available, a lot of our stuff, the blue light on your television, the blue lights on our phones, the blue lights on this thing that I'm using right here, maybe even the blue lights on behind me, I don't know, but like all of that is affecting our psyche. It's affecting our body physically, psychologically. It's just suppressing chemicals in our body. There's an obvious attack on masculinity in men, because the testosterone is dropping more than ever in all of history. I think a modern healthy adult, like a teenager today, has less testosterone than a man in his like 60s in the early 1900s. You know what I mean? And that's crazy. What happens with that? It affects our judgment. It affects how we lead. We don't have leaders. We don't have people that want to stand up for something. We don't have men that are willing to take burdens on. And then thus women are changed too drastically, because then men treat women differently, and then there's this whole like butterfly effect that all of society changes because of things that are happening to us physically, and when you look at the origins of technology, almost every single person that released something that was groundbreaking was connected to the occult and was connected to receiving that information. The guys in Silicon Valley, they have, a lot of these group spiritual meetings, and they say that they got the information from entities that spoke to them. You know what I mean?
Microdose the LSD.
Microdosing, and they have group spiritual events where they all go under at the same time, and they all simultaneously have the same experience, and they get these messages from these entities. And
wow.
And they also, it's funny enough, a lot of them are like insectolins or reptilian type creatures, and things like that. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Of course, it would be a reptilian or insectolin kind of thing. And then they get all this information, and well, then they put it out here, and we have all this stuff. You were talking earlier about black goo. That's in the midst of all of our technology. The black screens on our phone, the black screens, like it's literally everywhere.
Black mirror scrying that John D. And Edward Casey used to do.
Yeah, and not only that, for example, manipulating the psychology of people. A lot of the studies came from people that were occultists, that were Satanists, that were atheists, that believed in weird stuff. The CIA adopted all these different things in order to, like, a satanic ritual abuse. The CIA does that. It does that to do split personality,
military as well,
to do Manchurian candidates kind of thing, and make, that's what they do. It's ritual abuse and things like that. All this stuff is permeated everywhere. And it's used to control the masses. It's used to control us all in different ways, whether it's through media, through technology. And primarily your question was about technology. Our bodies are just completely bombarded with all of this stuff. And we have more cancer than ever because of the stuff, that is in the technology. And we have more manipulation going on, more depression, more sadness, more unwillingness to do things because of all this technology that surrounds us, and that's why I think it's important that I was reading up on, like, those things where you want to be grounding, you want to be doing things like that, you want to be eating better, exercising. All of that stuff is countering. The more you better your body, literally your temple, right, you're kind of able to battle this even better. Not to mention the supernatural help, where I'm asking God, like, Lord, I live in the middle of Babylon. Please capacitate my body to put up with what I'm getting bombarded with all the time, and I'm really praying for supernatural strength, because there's the only thing I can do. I mean, I eventually want to get a place where I got my land, where I'm, like, working on my own food and all that. Like, that's literally the goals. But right now, since I'm not doing that, and I'm just, like, praying for God to supernaturally heal me from anything like that, because the goal is, when you listen to Ray Kurzweil, and, like, one of the executive officers for Google, and all these, I follow the World Economic Forum. If you go over there and listen to Klaus Schwab and what he wants to do with the world, the fourth industrial revolution is underway. What does that look like? Pretty much think of any dystopian movie you've ever seen, like Blade Runner, like all the movies that take place in the future. That is the plan. That's why I like watching movies, because they literally are plans in your face, what's coming.
Right.
They're going to make this high upper class, and then there's going to be everybody else, and it's going to be mega. They're going for mega cities, and they control all the food. Everything is controlled by all these corporations and the government put together, which is what, NGOs, are doing with our government. These non-governmental organizations like the World Economic Forum, the Council of Foreign Relations, all of them, our governments listen to them. And these are the leaders of all the companies, of the food that you consume, the electricity, and things like that. I'm going to be doing an episode soon on my show. It's all about Ian Fleming in the 007, because Ian Fleming was, a child of Aleister Crowley, and people don't know that, and everything he puts into his, movies and things like that is related to what the, NWO kind of plan is,
And wasn't he like that 007 character that he experienced? He was doing all those types of different things, and I think it's about him, actually.
Oh yeah, we'll see. I haven't even, like, read into it yet, but I know that for sure he was practicing occultism, the Aleister Crowley kind, the magic with a K kind of thing that he created,
right.
And so it was just a lot of weird business. And as I watched the Daniel Craig movies, for example, there is companies, corporations pretending that we have a global warming problem, and then they're selling the water back to people with their technology that they're coming up with, and they're saying, "See, we're going to help global warming, and we're going to give you water," but really there wasn't a global warming problem. They were just holding the water and saying, "Look, we dried, the dams are dry, or everything's dry, so we there's a problem here." But they were just actually just storing the water and
Right.
creating the chaos so that they can bring the order with their technologies. And so in summary, that's what's going on pretty much with all of our technology, all of our manufactured crises that we have around the world.
Right.
And
Problem solution was a Hegelian dialect to
correct.
create the problem. Oh, just exited out again. Well, I'm sure he'll be back in a second, but it was, create the problem and have the solution. All right, so you're back. I was just saying, it's the Hegelian dialect.
Mhm. Yeah, it's exactly the Hegelian dialectic, and that's what's going on. And the goal is human 2.0, but they're not trying to create human 2.0 so that we can live forever, which is the promise, which is, by the way, the oldest lie in the book, in the in the Bible. Like, hey, you can live forever, you can be like gods. And it literally, those are the words that are coming out of our scientists today. If we embrace this technology, believe us, we can become like gods. We are the gods of this time. And so that language doesn't surprise me when they say things like that. And the best way to do that is for us to be dependent on anything the pharmaceutical companies put out on all that stuff. Keep eating the garbage. We'll figure out ways to
We'll
heal
come
you.
up with pharmakeia to fix you. And what you were just saying about the immortality, I made a tweet the other day that if the only reason you would want to live eternally in this world is because you're not going to a higher aspect, and you don't want to be earthbound. You don't want to be only a spirit on the earth plane. You want to actually be able to do things in a physical form because you know that you're not moving on from here.
Indeed, indeed. And that is the biggest fear, and I think we see that so much working. That's why, like, for example, they're working on manipulating the DNA. If you heard of CRISPR technology, I mean, they've been at it for a while, and the things that you can do on CRISPR now for the price is insane. Like, it's so cheap to modify genes. Like, hey, I want my baby to look a certain way, to be complete. It's just crazy that what they can do with that already. And just imagine, now that, like I said, I just read last year, they're working on nanobots that can replicate themselves. You know what I mean? As like a living being. And
Right.
that's it's and the objective I've read is already, hey, put those nanobots inside the body.
Yeah.
And the last James Bond movie was about, I don't know if you saw, but just the most important stuff is always in the background. It's not like the front information or the exciting action parts. That's just the exciting part.
Mhm.
It's the conversations in between that have such good information. But if you notice, he got a vaccine that had like nanotechnology that only affected a certain group of people,
Oh,
and
wow.
that group of people was killed off if and when they got the tech. And it was, once you get it, and if he would touch somebody else, he can spread that nanotech just by touching people. So it would kill off a certain anything that was genetically modified to kill. It would kill off within a minute or so. You know what I mean? You
Wow.
die. And so that was what that movie was about. And like I said, the second one was about global warming and how they were causing that crisis, and the CIA was working with them. And the first one was about like just certain technologies. I write it down. Each movie had a specific technology which we have, and they're working on. And they're selling it to us like these are necessary. Let's get rid of
Right.
fossil fuels. Let's get rid of all of this other stuff. And it's just kind of pushing the new world order into place with all this technology.
What caught my ear the other day was when Alexia said this transhumanism goal and this nanotech goal is that they could not be tried for crimes against humanity if you're
they
not
change it.
completely human.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's actually a lot of laws that are coming into place, to make room for stuff like that. You can kind of really
Good.
you can kind of really see that, like, there's a stage, or there's an anticipation for a certain stage coming.
Yeah.
You can really see the building blocks really coming into play. I listened to this other show called Canary Cry News Talk, and they talk about, they have this update. It's called the Flippy update, and they pretty much talk about the advancement of this arm that they made like just a few years ago, and this arm has turned into, now we have robots that do everyday jobs, and now we have robots that work with surgeons. We have all these technology kind of mixing in, and they're thinking, what would be best if we have that chip in our brain and we can control the robot with our brain, and we can do. So they're always going to sell it to you like, this is the best thing ever. You need to get this chip. You need to get this thing, And so I kind of, get a little mad when they think when a lot of people say they're gonna, I don't know, fully lie to you. I'm like, especially when not people, but when
twisting the truth.
Our community of truthers and things like that. Like I'm like, no, dude, they're gonna sell it. They're gonna sell it really good. You just have to pay attention. You know what I mean? And they're not gonna.
If you've ever known a narcissist, you can spot the twisting.
Oh yeah,
very easily.
Yeah, indeed. And so there's all these tells, and the thing is we're so unaware of the technology and the history of people that have this kind of power that we think that they're doing all these things to better humanity. And as I watch these videos on the World Economic Forum, I recommend the one that talks about the Fourth Industrial Revolution. It's very creepy. Not only is there like a ton of one-eye symbolism all over the place, but it's really just telling you, we're going to control the economy, the world, and you're going to like it. You're not going to own anything, and you're going to love it. You know what I mean? And that's basically what that video was saying. But I'm like, oh, no, thank you, sir.
Yeah.
I had a thought yesterday about I seen a commercial and the person winked afterwards, and when they winked, I'm like, it's the same as doing this. It's the same as doing this. When somebody winks at you, they are 100%, tricking you, but in a ha way to trick you some more.
Yeah,
man.
Interesting.
So mess with you, just to mess with you.
Yeah,
indeed.
So the last question I always like to ask my guests, what I said earlier, that what is your go-to grounding technique in this demonic world that we're in, where we're very sensitive to things and they can easily attach themselves to us and we can easily allow them in unknowingly? What is your go-to grounding technique to keep yourself with the full armor of God on?
Maybe it's actually not recommended. I hear this not recommended to a lot of people, but I disagree. I'm a firm believer in when the Bible says my people suffer from lack of knowledge, and for me, to be honest, that grounds me mentally, I could speak to, is do not be afraid to acquire knowledge as much as you can, even if you're reading it from a source that might be contradicting your current belief as a Christian. Because I went from barely a believer to an occultist to a Buddhist to being in a Christian cult to pretty much almost an atheist. So I had this like just all over the place, and it was all a journey of reading different things. But I ended up coming back to God because I tried really hard. I actually dare people to really study and try to prove the Bible wrong, like to try it. And you're not going to be able to. Spoiler alert, you know what I mean? You're not going to be able to. And that's what I did. And in the process, I learned that the biggest thing that God gave me that was a gift was the ability to learn all this information and really see the bigger picture. Like there's a much bigger picture, and it was all out of the basis of knowledge, of learning. So don't be afraid. And I obviously would say I recommend starting with the Bible. You'll actually know that it teaches you how there is occultism, how there is all these other religions, how there is all these other fallen entities, gods, where all these religions comes from. The power that you have in his name, all the power, the authority that you have because you're made in his image, what that means, just to know what those things mean. That knowledge is incredibly important, and it will ground you so well that when other things come, you're just going to be like, no, I got an answer for that. Like, it doesn't confuse me. It doesn't bother me. Like, let's talk about this opposing view. That's why we're called Fire Theft Radio. Actually, it's a reference to Prometheus. Because Prometheus stole the fire, which was knowledge, and gave it to the people, and it was like a kind of a problem there. But
wow.
So we decided we're going to take that fire back, and we're going to give it to people in a way where it's in our best way of giving that knowledge back to people, in the most honest and true way, based on the research that we're doing. We're giving knowledge, and that's why we call ourselves Fire Theft Radio. So I firmly believe that to be a well-grounded individual, you definitely need to acquire as much knowledge as you can, and pray along the way, and ask for that guidance, and it will just ground you. The thing that grounded me the most, we did 2 episodes on emotional intelligence, and it's something that I believe in our community is very necessary. And then in the old Christian church that I was in, was completely irrelevant. Like, people just think, well, if you believe in God, your emotions will follow. And it's not like that at all. It's not like that at all. We have such an internal struggle with our emotions and our psychology that if we're not aware of what we're feeling and why we are feeling it, it's going to turn into this dragon. It's just going to grow. Like you said, it has to do with healing. In the beginning of the show, if you do not heal these emotions, if you do not associate well what you're feeling and why you're feeling it, it's going to turn into a problem, and you're not even going to know why you have anxiety or why you have depression or why you have all these things, because you're not dealing with the problem. We often practice emotional suppression instead of emotional awareness. You know what I mean? And so we feel something and we tend to put it in the back. So those 2 things, in my opinion, are become aware of emotional intelligence. If you guys want to listen to those 2 shows for your audience, it's just labeled Emotional Intelligence 1 and 2, and I have a guest on, and he gives a lot of resources for people to do that. And then the other thing is really get grounded with knowledge. Start with the Bible, move from there, and God will guide you, man. And when things come around, you won't be panicking. You'll know. You can catch the lies, like you said earlier. You see the narcissist, you see all these things. You start catching things very like quickly. You're like, wow,
Easier.
It's a complete lie. That's not it. I watch the news for comedy now. Like, it's hilarious. Like, you know what I mean? Like, dude, that's hilarious. That's a lie. You know what I mean? It's like not even, you don't even think about it much. It just happens. And that's because of all the knowledge that comes around, and knowledge really wakes you up, and that being said, it'll make, it has made me suffer a lot less. And then that's why I believe the Bible says that, my people suffer from lack of knowledge. So I'm like, dude, then get that knowledge going. I don't want to suffer, man. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, that's also,
I agree with all of that.
Yeah. And have you ever heard the theory that Cain is Prometheus?
No.
Oh, yeah. So I talked to a biblical scholar, Adam Stokes, episode 84, I believe. You might want to check that one out. Yeah, he said that different groups throughout history have said that Cain was Prometheus, and that he and the serpent were essentially BFF, and that he brought the knowledge from Adam into the serpent seed that was already existing, gap theory, that there was already existing creation here that wasn't of God's creation, and that Adam and Eve were the first creation of God. So that really could tie some things in for you with that part. Maybe you'd be interested in that.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I'll check it out for sure. Because I know there's always a connection to these other religions and these other kind of quote unquote mythologies. Because a lot of that's why I say research is knowledge, because a lot of them, they tell the truth a little bit. You know what I mean? And then they just switch it up. And so that's why. Go ahead.
Sorry, I was going to say there's always a puzzle piece in everything that we see, hear, and do. There's always at least one.
Oh yeah, they're
with you.
Absolutely. And so that's why I read it, and I'm like, oh, and guess what? It ties back to something the Bible already says. So it's not like, that's why I say, like, people are afraid, but I'm like, look, the Bible said it first, and I can show it to you, and I can even tell you why this isn't, like, it ties together with that, and it just gives you some knowledge to where the connections are to even our modern history, which is all connected to all this ancient past. It's just, nothing's new under the sun, right?
Right. So do you want to let the people know where they can find you?
Yeah. So They can find me on iTunes. Most podcatchers have, Fire Theft Radio, or we have a website too, firetheftradio.com. Or they can email us there at firetheftradio@gmail.com. We're on Facebook. We're on Instagram. If you want to get a hold of me, I run the Instagram. I kind of run the show right now by myself because Omar's he's in an accelerated program to finish his nursing program. He's becoming a nurse, so I'm kind of running the stuff solo right now. But he'll be back. But so any messages that come through, it's usually through Instagram that I answer pretty quickly, and then they can get a hold of us there. And if you listen to our shows and don't like something or have questions, I'm not a hostile person, so I've got a lot of really funny emails where they don't like how I talk or something, or I don't like your show or things like that. I'm like, cool, man, it's fine. Let's talk about it. So
I think you present yourself in a very godly manner, in a very honest way too. I feel the truth coming out of you, radiating out of you.
Oh, thanks for that. I definitely thank God for that. And I think it's easier for me to do this stuff than actually do my show because I'm responding to your question, so I can articulate better in the show. Sometimes I'm on thinking of the information. So I'm going and then and so it's harder to do that on my own, man, especially now that I'm by myself. So that's why people were getting annoyed. Like you say, do you know what I mean? All the time. It's annoying, Chuck. You need to stop, and it's
Well, it's hard. We have to have these fillers because we don't want to have dead air time. That's the thing is we're trying to keep the audience engaged. So it's just an automatic trigger, that I just said,
Yep.
Right.
It's just there so that we don't have dead air.
I do it all the time, but now because of it, I'm more aware of it and I'm working on it. So I appreciate even the criticism because it helps, so, but yeah, they can find us on all those platforms and we're not on Spotify. A lot of people want Spotify, but sorry, we're not there.
I thought I caught you on
like
Spotify. Maybe I caught you somewhere else. I thought I heard you on there though.
There's an episode on there that I did with another show and he put it on there and it pops up as Fire Theft Radio when you look at it. But no, we're not on there. And unless I am, then show me a screenshot because I thought because I'm like I don't think so. But no, we put it on all these other and everything else like Podomatic, all the Android podcatchers and But all the episodes are on the website as well if you want to stream directly from there. And then that's it.
All right. Well, there you have it, folks. And we'll say goodbye to our audience. Goodbye, everybody. We will talk to you later.